Time to talk quarterback and tight end as we always do, but week 13 is special. It's going to be Thanksgiving week. You know what? Let's have some fun. Let's play a little word association. I'm going to list a Thanksgiving dish. Tell me what player reminds you of it. Let's do quarterbacks.
Okay.
All right. Turkey leg.
Dak Prescott, because always has the potential to be really good.
Mashed potatoes.
Drake May, just always solid.
Stuffing.
Matthew Stafford, just feels like comfort food.
Green bean casserole.
Trevor Lawrence, you feel like it should be good, but it usually isn't.
How about Jello salad?
Oh, God. JJ McCarthy.
Yeah, enough said. All right, well, however you associate these players, let's figure out who should be in your lineups. It's week 13. We need a win here. Quarterbacks, tight ends. Let's go through all the matchups. Remember, there are no buys this week, so you're going to have some tougher decisions to make. Not tough when thinking about these guys. They are must starts at quarterback, Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts this week. At tight end, Trey McBride, Brock Bowers, George Kittle, and Tyler Warren. One more decision that should be very easy to make. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet. Look, we're trying to help you win in fantasy football every week, all season long and all off season. Help us out. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up. We're on the way to 100K. We're trying to get there before the season is over. First game of the week, of course, it's the Packers at the Lions, Thanksgiving afternoon. So unfortunately, no stud tight end for the Packers. Tucker Kraft, of course, done for the season. So Jordan Love is still the quarterback, and he's still okay. I mean, I don't know. I don't feel like any sort of way about Jordan Love. Does this guy really have much of a ceiling these days? Doesn't really have a low floor. Does he do something special on Thanksgiving?
I mean, maybe, but you can't feel good here. He hasn't even reached 200 yards in 3 straight games. Only 2 total touchdowns over the last 3 games now on the road against the Lions. I've got to drop Jordan Love all the way down to Superflex only. No upside here.
Yeah, I mean, you could break down maybe game script. They'll have to pass to keep up with the Lions. Like, this is just not what the Packers do, right? It doesn't matter if Jacobs plays or not. They're going to run the ball. And look, Jordan Love just doesn't have enough upside to be more than super flex. Now, the Lions, of course, at home on Turkey Day. You figure this is a good spot for a guy like Jared Goff, but is it really? This Packers defense is legit, and this passing game also hasn't quite hit as many highs as it did last season.
Yeah, I mean, being at home certainly helps, but this is a tough matchup against the Packers. 5th toughest versus QBs, 5th lowest pass rate over expectation. But I can't drop Goff too low. I mean, there are plenty of quarterbacks I would not start over Jared Goff this week. I'm just going to say a high-end streamer this week.
No, this is true. We could always put up some yards, but yeah, not my favorite at all. So I'm going to say he's streamable. He's more on the low end, though. And then as far as tight end, Brock Wright, he just didn't do enough in Laporta's place. I don't think we have to consider him. All right, now the Chiefs at the Cowboys. Kind of wonder if this has the making of a shootout with Mahomes and company facing that Cowboys defense. So let's talk Mahomes and Kelsey. How did they show up against this admittedly better Cowboys defense?
Better, but it wasn't really much better against the pass. I mean, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Jalen Hurts, they still all had great games here. In Dallas, you got to feel good about Mahomes this week. He's not going to throw 0 touchdowns again like he did last week. Cowboys still allowing the most points to QBs this year. He's got to be a strong start. And I'm going to say Kelsey's solid here. I can't ever really drop him out of solid. Like, he's more like boom bust solid this year, right? He could have those games where he only gets you like 6, 7, 8 points, but he can also have those games where he gets you a big game. I don't want to bench that, especially this week.
No, definitely not this week. And look, you know that Rashee Rice was a little bit banged up last week. So was Xavier Worthy. Not sure they're going to miss, but if so, you got to feel like this is a big game for Kelsey. Let's keep him at the solid tier for now, but it's going to be one of my favorite picks here if those receivers miss time. And Mahomes, how can he not be a strong pick on a primetime game like this? And then apologies to Dak Prescott. Didn't know you had that dog in you against the Philly defense. I mean, a tale of 2 halves to be sure. He looked like exactly what we expected to see all throughout the first half and then just turn it around like that. I mean, can we doubt him even in this tough matchup against Kansas City defense anymore?
If it was in KC, I'd have my doubts, but at home, no chance. No way I'm going to doubt him. He's got to be very high-end solid this week. And like you said, I really think this could be the highest scoring game. Definitely of the Thursday slate, but maybe of the entire weekend.
Again, if you have Dak at this point, you shouldn't have any concerns. And then as far as Ferguson, I think he's just a streamer because, well, the touchdowns have dried up. George Pickens has been so good, and CeeDee Lamb is still there. He's still streamable, but just don't feel like that ceiling is there anymore. One more game on Thanksgiving night, Bengals at the Ravens. Before we talk about that game, don't forget, while you're setting your lineups for Week 13, get your picks in on Underdog, right? Got a lot of action. It is feast week, so you're going to have all sorts of goodies, promos, right? Profit boosts, free picks in your lobby, so go check that out. If you haven't tried Underdog yet, of course, this is a great time to do so. You know that you'll also get, as a new customer, the special gimme pick, Lamar Jackson just getting a yard on Thanksgiving Day. All right, you get the free pick. You're going to get up to $1,000 of bonus cash in your account as soon as you sign up for the first time on Underdog. Just make sure you use code ENDGAME when you do that. And then as soon as you play $5 towards any picks, you'll get another $100 in bonus funds. It's a great time to do it. So before Feast Week gets underway, try Underdog, but use code ENDGAME before you check out. And the third game on Thursday is going to be the Bengals at the Ravens. Of course, the headline here, Joe Burrow expected to return after a long absence. He gets the Ravens defense, which, you know, again, admittedly is a little bit better than it was early this season, but I don't think they're going to keep Joe Burrow down very long. What do you think about him? And, oh yeah, Mike Gesicki's back too.
Yeah, I mean, you got to feel good about Joe Burrow, but at the same time, we know he's not 100% here. The Ravens defense has been better against QB since the bye, but also they've played some of the, I think Tua is like the best QB they have faced since the bye. So I can't go too crazy here. I'm going to say very solid start for Burrow. I think Gesicki's worth the stream. He went right back to being the tight end one last week. Not having T. Higgins should certainly help.
Yeah, well, first about Gesicki, I think he's streamable. You know, we've seen that in games without Jamar Chase or T. Higgins, since he's been a Bengal, Gesicki gets a pretty decent target share, about 7 targets per game on average. He could be an option here, so definitely in the mix. As far as Burrow, to me, it's like, how do you not start him against Baltimore? I get that he's missed some time, but if he's good to go, he's good to go. You know, not a guy who depends on his mobility necessarily. He's going to be throwing it a ton because this Bengals defense is still just as bad as it was when he was back in the lineup, you know, week 1 and week 2. It's going to be an absolute shootout here. So if I have Burrow, I'm starting him. And with that said, I mean, again, how do you not start Lamar Jackson? It was a disappointment, though, against the Jets. Like, is he still being bothered by this injury? Is he 100% here? What's the deal?
I don't know. You got to wonder. I mean, 2 straight games with less than 10 fantasy points. Lamar Jackson? What? And it was the Jets. Like, it's the Jets here. But what's really concerning is no rushing at all. I mean, barely 10 rushing yards. Like, what is going on here? You got to wonder if he's less than 100%. But come on. It's the Bengals. I can't bench Lamar Jackson this week against the Bengals. I can't do it. Even though he's been so bad recently, I just can't. He's still a strong start. And I got to say, Mark Andrews got to be a strong start this week, too. We just saw Hunter Henry had done nothing for like 5 weeks and then just exploded against the Bengals. Like, yeah, there's always a chance he doesn't, but I got to take a chance here.
Yeah, look, if this was a different matchup, we might have a legitimate debate about Lamar Jackson. You cannot keep him on the bench against this Bengals defense. So practically a must start, let's just say here. And Mark Andrews, the only reason I won't go too far to say that he's an absolute must or a strong start is because it could be Isaiah Likely who gets involved here. It could be just a ton of King Henry. So yes, I think Mark Andrews is definitely going to be one of the better options this week though at tight end.
Do you want to get advice from Pierre and myself at the tip of your fingertips? Start sit, waiver wire, trades, and more? Well, you can do all of this and more on our new app, Draft Lane. We have the ability to view your roster, waivers, and more to give you the right feedback to make the perfect choice. Download Draft Lane from the App Store or Google Play, or use these handy QR codes. And first-time users can use code ENDGAME to get 10 free credits and get your questions answered today.
And on Black Friday, we're going to have some NFL action. It's the Bears taking on the Eagles. So because of that, Jalen Hurts, just lock him in your lineup. Now, what about the Bears side? We got Caleb Williams. And then at tight end, Colson Loveland seems to be pretty much establishing himself as the number one guy there.
Yeah, he didn't get off to the hot start like Tyler Warren, but he's starting to show why he was drafted so highly as well, starting to come on here. But man, this on the road against the Eagles, this is a tough spot. I'm just going to say Loveland, a risky streamer this week. And I'm going to say Caleb Williams also just a streamer this week. On the road in Philly, you can't feel good. But that being said, there are definitely worse options this week.
Yeah, take what Dak Prescott did last week, but Caleb Williams is not exactly the same type of player. I'm nervous here. I think this is going to be tough for him. I'm going to put him as a super flex option, one of the better in that tier, but I don't want to risk streaming him if I could help it. And then Colson Loveland, same thing. He's streamable, but you cannot like this matchup. Do you like Dallas Goedert this week facing that Bears defense? I mean, it seems like now it's more all about the receivers again in Philly.
Yeah, I can't say I feel great about Dallas Goedert this week, but the Bears do allow the 9th most points to tight ends. But yeah, we have seen AJB, Devonta Smith get more involved, but the Eagles still can't run the ball. They still throw it a lot. I'm going to say solid, but barely solid, borderline streamer here.
I'll just go with streamer. High-end streamer to be sure, but his role a little more uncertain here with AJB actually getting consistent targets and Devonta Smith as well. Now on to the Sunday slate. Let's start with Saints taking on the Dolphins in Miami. All right, so Tyler Shuck and Juwan Johnson duo looked like they were primed to smash against the Falcons last week. They did not smash. Tyler Shuck took a slight step back. Does he do better against Miami?
I don't know if he's going to do better here. I'm just going to say super flex only because it's the Dolphins. But look, he got multiple sneak chances at the goal line. He didn't convert any of them, but at least it gives him that opportunity. And I think Juwan Johnson's still solid here. No, he didn't smash, but he was good last week. And the Dolphins are the 4th worst versus tight end. So super flex for Shuck, solid for Juwan.
Well, I'm going to keep some level of faith in Juwan Johnson because the target share is still pretty good for a tight end. They really just don't have a lot else there, so solid, but barely, mostly because of the matchup. The one thing with Tyler Shuck here is we started to see more Taysom Hill at the goal line, behind center once in a while. It just happened. It was inevitable, right? It was going to happen. I don't think this is the Taysom week. We're not going to tell you to start Taysom Hill. But yeah, Tyler Shuck, only because of the matchup, is just barely a super flex option. And do we just say the same thing for Tua Tagovailoa because of the matchup? And then, oh yeah, Darren Waller might come back. His practice window has been opened.
Well, I'll say Darren Waller first. If he comes back, yeah, why not? Take a chance, stream him. We saw before the injury he was pretty decently involved here. It's the Saints. You can stream him. Tua, I don't even care the matchup. Remember, before the bye, he got to play the Commanders and was horrible. I don't care the matchup. I am not starting Tua.
Yeah, he tends to let down when he should smash and vice versa. The Dolphins seem to only want to beat the good teams and lose to the bad teams. It's one of those things. So he'll probably disappoint you this week, but I think he's at least a super flex option against the Saints. The Texans are going to face the Colts this week, and yes, that Texans defense is legit, but Tyler Warren getting so many targets at tight end. I mean, really, do you want to start anybody else over him? All right, now, as far as the Texans offense here, could have a change with CJ Stroud back in the fold. Expected to return this week. If so, what does he do against this Colts defense, and what does it mean for Dalton Schultz?
I'm just going to say super flex for CJ Stroud here. This isn't necessarily the worst spot, and the Texans, even before CJ Stroud got hurt, this passing game was kind of coming along here. I think it will continue to come along, but I mean, that said, what's really the upside here? Super flex only. And I will say Dalton Schultz, again, I'm going to say solid, lower end solid. Look, last week he faced the toughest defense versus tight ends. Colts, 6th easiest defense.
Yeah, this matchup will be really interesting. You got Colts, one of the best offenses in the NFL, against Texans, one of the best defenses in the NFL. How's it going to play out? It'll probably wind up somewhere in the middle, right? This game will be 17-14 or something like that. So, look, in the end here, you can never feel too excited about his Texans passing offense. Stroud is probably never going to be more than a super flex option unless it's an absolute smash spot, which I don't think this is. And then for that reason, Schultz is just a streamer. So Daniel Jones gets to face this Texans defense, which hasn't allowed a QB1 finish, and by that meaning top 12 in your typical fantasy league, to any quarterback this year, including Josh Allen last week, who we saw pretty much shut him down. So is Daniel Jones even an option?
Oh, I would have a hard time starting Daniel Jones this week after what we just saw with Josh Allen. I can't do it. I can't do it. Too risky.
Look, I don't want to start Daniel Jones. I'm barely going to keep him in the super flex range just because there are enough other bad quarterbacks in this league that don't run like Jones does. Speaking of bad quarterback play, let's talk Falcons at Jets. Kirk Cousins is the guy in Atlanta still these days. And then seemingly his favorite target, Kyle Pitts at tight end. It doesn't seem like we're ever getting prime Kirk Cousins back, does it?
No, we're never going to get prime Kirk Cousins back. Just barely super flex this week, and only because it's the Jets. But they're going to try to hide him as much as they can. He's hardly going to throw here. Kyle Pitts, I'm just going to say a streamer. I mean, he did lead the team in targets last week, but what, like 2 catches for 25 yards? I mean, only because it's the Jets.
only because of the matchup here. Barely super flex, barely streamer for Kyle Pitts. And then for the Jets, it's going to be Tyrod Taylor again and Mason Taylor again at tight ends. I mean, only because it's the Falcons?
Well, I don't know. I mean, Mason Taylor, no. He's just not involved enough. Unfortunately, after it looked like early in the year, maybe he was going to break out. It's just not happening now, unfortunately. You got to have to wait. Maybe till next year, maybe beyond. We'll see. Tyrod Taylor, I will say super flex. Look, he wasn't awful last week, but he wasn't great. I'm guessing this week he probably won't be awful, but he probably won't be great.
No, I mean, look, he'll give you a little bit something. If you're in a super flex league, you can play him over most of those other flex options you got on your bench. Mason Taylor, we can just ignore. 49ers get to face the Browns in Cleveland this week. So George Kittle has reestablished himself as an elite tight end. You can just start him without worrying about it. I think we got to worry a little bit about Brock Purdy, just when we thought he was on the way back. And what happened on Monday night?
I don't know. That was terrible. But I saw a stat like this was like his 4th Monday night game or 5th Monday night game, and he's been horrible in like all the Monday night games. I guess the lights are too bright on Monday night, but how good can we feel on the road in Cleveland this week? This is brutal. I'm just going to say a streamer.
Well, I'm going to go lower than that. Super flex only. I mean, maybe he's not completely confident, in the toe. Maybe that's holding him back. I don't know. But look, Cleveland, despite the fact we know they're a tough run defense, they're not a bad pass defense either. Like, there's just not a lot of upside here, so I'd rather not stream him. And then we're going to see start number 2 from Shedeur Sanders, who, look, for what it's worth, he acquitted himself fairly well, right? Led that team to actually score some points and, didn't make a lot of mistakes. So, with that said, how confident can you feel about Sanders this week? And I guess his new favorite target, which is Harold Fannin Jr.
Yeah, this is a good matchup against his 49ers defense. I know they look good against Bryce Young and the Panthers, but I said all last week after Bryce Young had that massive game that felt like a trap against the 49ers, and it was a trap. I like Shedeur this week, but I can't go too crazy here. Super flex. Plus, if they're going to pull him at the goal line for Wildcat every time, like, come on. I still feel like the Browns do not want this guy to succeed. I really feel like they are trying to do whatever they can to make sure this guy doesn't succeed, but hey, he looked okay last week. It's not a tough matchup. Super flex. And then Fannin, he's got to be back on the solid tier for tight ends. I mean, okay, he didn't have a monster game last week, but he had double the targets of anybody else on this team, and Njoku not even a factor anymore.
Oh, exactly. Fannin continues to command targets. If he's going to be the leading target here, I mean, sure, as far as tight ends go, why not just say he can be a solid option? Sanders, again, barely super flex. I mean, maybe they open up the playbook a little bit more. Maybe they let him actually do something near the goal line. Maybe not. Rams get to take on the Panthers in Carolina this week. And so at this point with Matthew Stafford, I mean, look, why do you even question it? If you have Stafford, you just start him.
You have to. I mean, like, what? Why are we disrespecting these guys? Like, how do we not have Matthew Stafford as a must start? Like, how do you bench Matthew Stafford? Strong start. You got to start him. And then, hey, shout out to whoever was on the stream. I think it was Sunday morning. Was it Sunday morning or Saturday? Whichever stream. Talking about Colby Parkinson with Tyler Higbee on IR. Shout out to you, man. You called it. I say you could stream Colby Parkinson here. I mean, the Panthers still bottom 10 against tight ends, although I will say the Rams use a lot of tight ends, so the floor isn't very high here, but you can at least stream them.
For what it's worth, I took Colby Parkinson scoring a touchdown, took the higher and underdog, paid off, except it didn't because I combined it with Xavier Restrepo anytime touchdown. Okay, that didn't happen. But look, Parkinson has touchdown upside. We've seen it. You can stream him for that reason against a Carolina defense that, remember, only behind the Bengals, who are historically bad against the tight ends. Panthers aren't that far behind. They give up a lot to the tight end. Then we've already addressed Bryce Young here. I mean, look, he'll have some good games mixed in with all the very disappointing games. He's better at home, but he gets to face the Rams.
Yeah, it's probably not going to be a good game against this Rams defense here. I mean, look, if I've learned anything in all my years of watching football, playing fantasy football, it's that any random crazy thing can happen, but this would feel like one of the most random crazy things of the week.
Yeah, and you don't want to risk it in your lineup. Again, out of all those other quarterbacks who are like, maybe barely super flex, Bryce Young is not one of them. Jags at Titans this week. T-Law and the Jags, they just keep kind of chugging along. And Brendan Strange is back in the fold at tight end, and he made an impression in his first game back.
Yeah, he did. I mean, he tied for second on the team in targets last week, plus the Titans play the fifth most too high here, and he's much better versus too high. There is a little worry if BTJ comes back, but I'm still going to say Brenton Strange, low end of the solid, because he's getting involved. The Jags target, T-Law targets the tight ends. T-Law, I'll say just a streamer. I mean, this is not a bad matchup at all against the Titans. I mean, certainly it's a good matchup, but the worry here is they may just not have to throw the ball a lot.
Exactly. Trevor Lawrence, for the words, it's just always a streaming option for me because it just doesn't have a massive ceiling. Partly because the defense has been better, and of course they won't have to worry too much about the Titans this week. And for that reason, I'm going to keep Strange as a streamer just because the targets might not be as plentiful, and like you said, BTJ might complicate things. And for Tennessee, I mean, look, it wasn't great, but Cam Ward continues to quietly improve. Is it enough to make him viable, at least in a super flex league? And then, hey, if there's one guy who did stand out last week, it's rookie tight end Gunnar Helm. Is he on the radar now?
Yeah, he's starting to trend up. Actually, over the last 2 weeks, he leads the team in targets. Now, it's not a lot of targets, but he leads the team in targets. Jags second worst versus tight ends. I'm going to say Helm is solid, like lower end solid, but solid this week. And then Cam Ward, okay, he showed some signs of life last week, but I can't feel great here against this Jags defense. Just super flex.
Yeah, Cam Ward, again, barely clinging to super flex, relevance here. Gunnar Helm is an option. The only reason I won't go higher than a streamer is because, technically Chiga Okonkwo is still there. Didn't do anything last week, but a couple of weeks ago he did. And so I think Helm is the tight end of the future for them, but the upside is still somewhat limited. All right, this week the Cardinals taking on the Buccaneers. Trey McBride is a set and forget, of course. And look, this isn't the matchup you thought we would be getting before the season started. It's not Kyler Murray and Baker Mayfield, the former number one picks. It's going to be Jacoby Brissett, possibly against Teddy Bridgewater. But look, Jacoby Brissett has been really good these last few weeks. He's been better than Kyler Murray was before the injury. So where do we put Brissett in this matchup?
He's just solid. I mean, at this point, if you picked up Jacoby Brissett recently, just keep rolling with Jacoby Brissett. You don't even need to think about your QB position. Not to mention the Bucs are fifth worst versus QBs. This isn't even a bad matchup.
I don't want to say set and forget, he's the best quarterback out there, but what do you have to worry about with Brissett? He just continues to do it, and the volume is there. They just throw it so much with him because they have confidence in him. And I don't think that's going to change because this running back room is still a mess. Now, it could be a mess for the Bucs. Again, they were already trending downward. Baker Mayfield already looked like something wasn't right with him. And now we know something's not right because of that shoulder injury. So it's going to be iffy if he does give it a go, which would be the very Baker Mayfield thing to do, right? Just to play even though you're injured. But if he plays, how good do you feel about him? And if he doesn't, how good do you feel about Teddy B?
Well, I don't feel good about Teddy B at all here. I mean, the Cardinals are not some scary defense, but come on. This is Teddy Bridgewater here. He might be a capable backup, but he's not Jacoby Brissett. I'm not going to start Teddy B. Baker Mayfield, if he plays, risky streamer because, again, there are quarterbacks where I'm like, can I really start that guy over Baker? Probably not, but you definitely have to worry. what if he lands on the shoulder weird and he leaves the game again and he absolutely kills you this week? And then Cade Otton, barely a streamer. I mean, he'd probably be higher, but he's got bricks for hands.
Yeah. The Otton thing, I mean, Godwin back to cut into targets potentially, quarterback situation. I'm just going to avoid Cade Otton at this point. And then, look, I know that Baker Mayfield has been great for the most part, but even before the injury, he was looking bad. The couple of weeks beforehand, he has just not looked like himself. I mean, I don't want to do it. I think he's super flex only if he gives it a go. And I wanted to give Teddy B the benefit of the doubt, but then I remembered this guy was retired technically for a while. He was like coaching high school or something, and then he came back to the NFL. Nah, I'm not going to do it. All right, Vikings at the Seahawks here. And sure, this is the revenge game for Sam Darnold, potentially, but first, let's talk Jello salad. J.J. McCarthy, despite not taking any obvious sort of hard contact and having no apparent injury throughout the game, suddenly has been diagnosed with a concussion on the flight home. It's weird how that happens. Second mystery injury for J.J. McCarthy this year. So look, he's being benched basically for Max Brosmer this week. Where are we at with this Minnesota passing offense?
Just stay away. Stay as far away as I possibly can. Like, look, maybe there's like a 0.0000. I mean, I don't even know how many zeros I'd have to go to. 1% chance that Max Brosmer, how do you even pronounce it? I don't even know. Maybe he can be the solution, but probably not the solution here. I'm staying far away.
I mean, I want to say it can't be worse, but he could be worse. I mean, we've seen guys like Josh Dobbs, Nick Mullins, and all these random quarterbacks do something in the Kevin O'Connell offense, but I'm not going to actually take that into account when setting my fantasy lineups, which also means TJ Hawkinson is an absolute no-go. All right, now, Sam Darnold, back at home against his former team, the Vikings. Does he show out, or is this just an okay outing for him?
Yeah, I'm a little worried here. Yeah, it's a revenge game at home against the Vikings. That's all nice, and last week he was good, but that was an obvious bounce back spot. Like we said, come on, this is a bounce back spot. This feels like not a bounce back spot, but I can't drop him too low. I'm going to say a high-end streamer this week.
Well, look, I think he's going to be solid this week because with the state of that Minnesota offense, Seattle's going to have the ball plenty. I mean, this matchup might not really be too much tougher than last week's for them. I mean, a little bit. But, I think Sam Darnold is back to just being kind of a solid player, more for floor than ceiling, but you don't have to sweat it. And then let's not forget A.J. Barner, the tight end. This guy had been seeing carries. This is a tight end. He's like the tush-push specialist there in Seattle. They give him the ball near the goal line 4 weeks in a row. And then last week he actually got a chance, but then there was, I think, a false start, and so it nullified it. I mean, he's got touchdown upside is what I'm trying to say. So he could be streamed. All right, now we got the Bills versus the Steelers. We'll give Josh Allen a pass for last week. I think he should still start him. What about the tight end here? If Dalton Kincaid does return from injury, are you interested?
Only if he is fully off the injury report and only because the Steelers give up the fifth most points to tight ends, then I will say a high-end streamer.
I need that clearance way before Friday even for me to feel good about Kincaid. But look, if he's out there, he's good to go. Sure, he's a streaming option, always has upside. And then on the other side, it sounds like probably Aaron Rodgers coming back. He pushed to play last week, wasn't going to happen. If so, again, does this really matter for him or even the tight ends?
No, I mean, Aaron Rodgers against this Bills defense, they're awful against the run, good against the pass, not starting. And Mason Rudolph somehow looked worse than 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers. I had no chance here if it's Mason Rudolph again. And look, I know Freiermuth somehow last week, 2 weeks ago, we're like, Bengals, and he did nothing. And then last week, it's like, oh, he did something. But come on, Bills are the toughest against tight ends. No way.
Yeah, this is a hard no across the board. Every quarterback, every tight end that Pittsburgh could possibly throw out there, I'll just pass. All right, Raiders at Chargers this week. Despite the upheaval there in Vegas, I think you have Brock Bowers. You're not really benching him, are you? Just keep him in your lineup. All right, now, one of the changes that we've seen is offensive coordinator Chip Kelly is out. We haven't seen a change at quarterback yet. I mean, do you think Geno is on his last legs potentially?
I mean, maybe, but I think they're actually waiting for Aiden O'Connell, honestly. I think Aiden O'Connell is the guy. Like, I don't think they want to bench him for Pickett. I think they want to wait for Aiden O'Connell. And, he could be back. I think they opened up his practice window last week, so he could be back. But I think for right now, it's Geno. But, I mean, look, here's the real question. Does it even matter? Geno Smith, Kenny Pickett, Aiden O'Connell, whoever? Nah.
Does not matter. Geno somehow manages to make his stat line look slightly better than he actually performed in the game, like garbage time stats. It's not enough. It's not a good matchup. No way. I think it's fair to be somewhat interested in the Chargers this week because they get to face the Raiders defense. They're at home. They're off a bye. So let's talk Justin Herbert and Oronde Gadsden.
Yeah, it's, the last time we saw Herbert, he was getting absolutely steamrolled by the Jags, but this is the Raiders. They're at home. I think he's got to be solid this week. And I'm going to say Oronde Gadsden also solid. Raiders play the most zone of any team, and he has actually been the Chargers' best pass catcher versus zone.
Exactly, and that's why I think Gadsden, again, as far as tight ends go, I'm going to sneak him into the strong tier again. A couple of down weeks, but those were kind of weird games for the Chargers. They just kind of let down. They didn't need to pass the ball as much. Yeah, I think he'll be really good this week. And Justin Herbert, again, you got him. You just fire him up. And Sunday night, it's the Broncos taking on the Commanders. It's been fair to ask whether you really want Bo Nix in your lineup or not. And same thing for his tight end, Evan Engram. Maybe this is a get-right spot because the Commanders' defense has been so brutal.
Yeah, like you never know which Bo Nix you're going to get on a week-to-week basis. But I'll take my chances on this Bo Nix this week against this Commanders defense. I'm going to say solid. And then Evan Engram, barely a streamer only because it's the Commanders. But this guy hasn't even had 45 yards in any game this year and only one total touchdown. Even as a streamer, there's no ceiling here.
I'm just going to ignore Evan Engram. I need to see him do something. I don't know what's going on here. I don't know if it's the fit in this offense or what, but I'm going to ignore Engram, and I can't get that excited about Bo Nix even in this matchup because, look, honestly, they might not need to throw it that much. It seems like Nix does his best work when they do what they do and then get off to a really slow start and have to push the gas pedal in the second half. I don't even think it's going to go that way. I think this is just a low-scoring game. So Nix, to me, is just a streamer. And as I just hinted, don't have a lot of confidence in this Washington offense. Marcus Mariota, Zach Ertz at tight end. You think they can do anything?
I mean, maybe, but come on, this is the Broncos defense. You can't feel good here. I'm not starting these guys.
I think Mariota has to be a sit, even in Superflex leagues. And Ertz is a viable streamer most weeks, not this week. Sunday night, we're getting a Super Bowl rematch from a while ago. But still, it's Giants and Pats here on Monday night. So let's talk, potentially Jackson Dart versus Drake May. Does Dart return? If so, why? Come on, let's just see Jameis Winston out there again. He's just so much fun.
I mean, you got to think Dart is back. We thought he was going to come back last week, and then it was kind of last minute. They're like, nope, he can't play. You got to think it's going to be Dart again this week. I'll say you can stream him here. Yes, this is a tough matchup against the Patriots, but he does run. Maybe he'll be a little more careful when he runs, let's hope, but he does run, and he is willing to sling it, so there is at least some upside here. And then I'll say Theo Johnson, you can also stream him. The Pats, for as good as they are on defense, they are the 10th worst versus tight ends, and he is involved.
Yeah, well, here's the thing with Dart is, we always say he's got that upside because he runs. Kind of wonder if that changes now because the fact he just missed a couple of games due to concussion protocol. Why are they going to run this guy over and over again toward the end of a season where they're not going to make the playoffs? And why risk it? I'm not saying he's not running at all, but I feel like the upside is capped against this really tough defense. I think he is, I don't even know if he's a streamer. I'm just going to put him in the super flex tier. And the same thing with Theo Johnson. I think he's a streamer, just not one I love. Now, I feel like we should love Drake May against this Giants defense that just fired the coordinator in the middle of the season. But I feel like we should have loved him last week against the Bengals, and he was just okay. So is this another just kind of solid floor game? And then, of course, Hunter Henry doesn't face the Bengals again this week, but, it's not a bad matchup for him either.
Well, the Giants actually aren't terrible against tight ends. He's going from easily the best matchup to a Giants team that is actually the 9th toughest against tight ends. This feels like an absolute trap here for Hunter Henry. You can stream him because he's always a guy you can stream, but I expect more like a 2-catch for 24-yard, no touchdown type of game this week. And then I will say Drake May, yes, it feels like Drake May should smash. It feels like Drake May has been fantastic, but then you look at fantasy and you're like, he's been okay. Like, he's been way better in real life than for fantasy. I worry that's going to be the case again this week. I'm just going to say high-end solid.
Yeah, Hunter Henry is definitely a trap. I mean, we should have known it's the Bengals last week. Of course, he has that upside. Can't take him completely off the map here because he could always score again. So he's barely a streamer this week. I think May will be rock solid as well. Look, at the Giants at least have shown signs of life on offense and not so much on defense after we saw that collapse last week. I think May gets back to his ways and might run a little bit more this week, especially against this Giants front. So I think he sneaks into the strong tier again. All right, there you have it. Everything you need to know about the quarterbacks and tight ends for Week 13. Get those lineups in nice and early before that Thursday slate happens. You can just sit back and enjoy the games and some good food as well. Don't forget to enjoy all the videos we got for you. We're still coming at you with content every day this week. And so check out this week's playlist for everything you need to know to dominate.